We are those who dream. Dream of a better world, dream of a just nation, dream of whole communities united in faith, hope, and love. We dream what God's dreams are for us and through us. When we close our eyes or drift in thought, what God dreams for us comes to us. And sometimes when we are lucky and blessed, we bring those dreams into reality. Welcome to the 2020 pandemic edition of our annual Story Slam. No matter where you are when you gather with us for this event, we imagine you are here in the sanctuary right with us, gathering with us tonight. Our storytellers are church members and dreamers too, just like you. And as you hear these varied stories, listen for the dream which lies within and beneath each one. From places deeply rooted, we come to tell our stories. May you, leaving this place tonight, feel that you can own your own stories, dream of new ones, and tell them all with those you love. Our first story comes tonight from Meg Brown and her granddaughter, CeCe. Meg's unable to be here with us tonight, so her daughter Marley will step in for her. A church member, Meg and her husband have been with us a long time, and Meg leads our Mature Ministries writing group, which meets once a month online. And so I mention that to encourage the dreamer, the storyteller, and the writer in you to reach out to Meg and join us. And now our first story.
Hi, I'm Marley, and this is my daughter, Cecilia, and we are reading a story written by Meg Brown, my mom, her grandmother, and I will be reading the part I'm substituting, filling in for Meg, reading the part written for her, and CeCe's reading her own part. We are supposed to tell a story about our Advent theme. The theme is a phrase from the book of Psalm, those who dream. And I have a real true story about our church for this three-word theme, those who dream.
Well, if it's about our church, it must be about a meeting. We Presbyterians sure have a lot of meetings.
Yes, good guess. It all started on October 8th, campus ministry work group meeting.
What was the need? Because you have to have a reason for a dream.
You are correct. Evans, our campus minister, told us that because of COVID, U of M schedule, our church would not be able to host our annual pancake supper for the students. So sad.
Okay, that was the need, but what was the dream? And who was the dreamer? There has to be a dreamer.
Pastor Evans was the dreamer. He had an idea. He wanted to give every student in our campus ministry a bag of homemade cookies the weekend before they started their midterm tests.
Almost every dreamer needs some fellow dreamers. Did Evans have any members to share his dream?
He sure did. Almost every member of the campus ministry work group thought it was a great idea.
Oh, that was good. Dreamers need company. But there must have been some doubters. Usually, where there's a dreamer, there's at least one droopy doubter.
Well, as a matter of fact, I was the doubter. Evans wanted us to do all this baking and packing by next Thursday. I thought he didn't tell us his dream early enough to get it accomplished. Anyway, I don't personally bake cookies. I bake muffins and brownies, but not cookies. So I decided when the discussion started, I was just going to sit there and stay out of it. I wasn't going to say anything.
Really? You didn't say anything? That must have been really hard for you.
I did say one little thing. It just so happened I was going to a Presbyterian women coordinating team meeting the very next morning, and I knew that there was an established Presbyterian women cookie baker list who bake cookies for all the church receptions. I offered to ask the group if they would be willing to participate in this baking.
Well, that was quite a bit to say. but now you have the doers. Dreams sure do need doers.
Not so fast. We didn't have them yet. That's why I did some more talking. The next day, when I got to that meeting, they agreed the church had to do something for the students to replace the church's student pancake supper. They were excited and agreed to have the PW participate, but someone had to contact the chair of the bakers, Michelle. She had the list of all the cookie bakers. She'd also be the best to do the calling and recruiting. Not being a cookie baker, I didn't even know Michelle, but I did offer to contact her. I was still worried because we had this really close deadline.
Well, you often have to take risks when you dream. How did that work out?
Well, not very well at first. I sent her an email asking Michelle that very day. I waited over the weekend and no reply. On Monday, I called her, and it turned out that I'd used the wrong email address. I was so embarrassed and apologized. I'd wasted 3 days. I said it was probably too late now. But this cookie baker chair, Michelle, was not only a dreamer, she's really a doer, and she was organized. She asked me about the size of the bags, the number of the students. I wasn't organized. I hadn't gotten those details from Evans, so I quickly offered to bake muffins and bring some mandarin oranges to help fill the bags. Michelle, my organized new friend, said, "Don't worry, we'll do the best we can."
That's what dreamers often say and do. Sounds like a great person to dream with.
Well, I went to the church on Thursday at the assigned time of 3 p.m. with my muffins and oranges ready to pack the bags. I hadn't had time to check with Michelle to find out how her recruiting went. Evans met me at the door looking quite discouraged. He showed me the brown bags, not too big. I was relieved. The kitchen was sort of busy that afternoon. There was a lot of stuff on the big tables. But then Evans shared that he'd only found 3 containers of cookies on the back table near the door that were identified for the campus ministry. My heart sank.
Yep, that can happen when you're dreaming. You just have to keep trying.
Oh, we did try. We searched the entire kitchen and carefully looked at each and every package on each and every table. There was one, and then another, and so many more, all carefully marked for campus ministry. A wonderful sight. I was so relieved and thrilled and blessed.
Ah, the dream is coming true. Things are looking really good.
We really filled those bags with fruit and a great selection of homemade cookies. We even had dozens of homemade gluten-free cookies that our treasurer Bonnie had thoughtfully made. And we topped off each bag with 2 homemade blueberry muffins. Over 20 bags were filled to the brim.
And that almost always happens when your dreams are blessings of love.
May our First Presbyterian Church love and dream together this Advent season. God bless.
Our second story is a monologue from Scripture from Joseph, and it's called Change All in an Instant, written by my friend Emma in England. It's funny how things can change all in an instant. I run a carpentry shop back home. It's a good, steady trade, plenty of work, and good income. I've been working for a few years and thought that the time was about right to settle down. After all, the rabbis say that a man who has no wife lives without joy, without blessing, and without goodness. It was all arranged for us, of course. My father suggested a local girl called Mary. I'd known her as she grew up, a pretty girl, hardworking and from a respectable family. She'd make a good wife and a good mother to our children. Her family agreed to the match, and we were formally betrothed. I spent the time leading up to our marriage making furniture for our new home together, and now we were engaged. I could see more of Mary. I knew she was faithful and good, but I didn't know she was so funny. I didn't get much time in the workshop when she came to visit, but I loved spending time talking to her. I found myself really looking forward to getting married, to having all the time in the world to spend together. Then, in an instant, things changed. Mary came to the workshop, her eyes red with crying. She seemed frightened of me and could hardly speak. Eventually, she blurted out the words, "I'm pregnant." I felt like someone had punched me hard in the stomach, as though my breath was stopped up in my throat. My Mary, the good, respectable girl, had betrayed me, had shattered my hopes and my dreams. Then came the anger. I wanted to know who the other man was. I was going to make him pay. But she just gave me some cock and bull story about an angel telling her that she would bear God's son, as though anyone would believe that. I told her to get out while I thought about what to do. I could have stood in the marketplace and told the world what she'd done, disgracing her and her family for good. In a little town like this, I could have asked for her to be stoned to death. They don't enforce it much anymore, but that is the law. I could carry out my vengeance if I chose. But no, that's not me. I struggle to kill spiders. How could I ask for the death of someone I loved? Because I still did love her. That love hadn't turned to hate despite what she'd done. I grieved, though, for the death of our future together and because she felt she had to lie. I decided to send her away. She could go to her cousin in Jerusalem, where no one else knew her or me, and could tell them she was a widow. I wouldn't have to see her, and she wouldn't be disgraced either. It was the best way, I decided. I felt exhausted with all the emotion, and I went to my room. It was hard to pray with a heart that's empty, but the words of the prayer at night seemed hollow to me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam. Blessed are you, Lord, our God, King of the universe. It's not easy to pray to God in the darkness. I fell into a deep sleep, and again, in an instant, things changed. It was the clearest dream I've ever had, as clear in my memory as it was when it was happening. An angel, something like a man with wings, a messenger from God himself, came to me. He said his name was Gabriel. And he said, "Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins." She had been telling me the truth. When I woke, I went to her and said, "We should pretend the baby was mine." We wouldn't be the first couple to have a child less than 9 months after the wedding, and we were able to arrange the wedding quite quickly. People probably snickered, guessing that she was pregnant, but I was just pleased that my Mary was with me again. Now we're on our way to Bethlehem, to the city of my ancestor David, for this Roman census, and it looks like Jesus will be born there. God broke into our lives, and everything changed for us. And then I dreamed. I don't know what our future will be, but oh, Adonai, bless us as we walk this unexpected path. Amen. Our third story comes to us from Gail Grady, a member of the Congregational Life Committee, a mask maker extraordinaire, a story from her life. Gail?
16501 Fairmount. It was the first house that I remember living in. Marvin, Barbara, Dan, and Gail Skubik moved in the August of 1951, shortly after I turned 1. It was a brand new, typical post-World War II, less than 1,000 square foot bungalow. Mom worked hard to keep the inside spick and span, while Dad handled the lawn, the shrubs, and the garage. The lawn. Somewhere, somehow, Dad decided he wanted the best lawn in the neighborhood, and the local nursery was more than willing to help. Like most things in Dad's life, once he got going, there was no turning back. He decided he wanted creeping bent grass. You know the stuff, the bright green, very, very short, golf course putting green short grass. Armed with a bushel basket full of plugs from the local nursery, Dad started poking and shoving those plugs in our lawn. It just so happens that creeping bent grass is a lot like Dad was. It takes over, and those plugs did exactly that. But Dad didn't stop with just the planting. As the grass spread, it was time to maintain it, starting with an entire underground sprinkler system that he installed one Saturday with a friend, front and back. Remember, this was the mid-1950s, and nobody but golf courses had underground sprinkler systems. And the Skubiks. Marvin wanted his lawn evenly watered, and watered a lot. Then came the mower. All those plugs and all that water and a little fertilizer thrown in, that bent grass had to be cut, and cut a lot. Dad was now in overdrive. He needed a very special mower, imported from England. 10 blades, maybe 12, with a big metal bin on the front to catch all those clippings. Clippings weren't just clippings. They had to be caught and then disposed of properly in a dedicated metal trash can that was kept in the garage. Clippings only. Dad loved that mower. He identified with it. He gave it a shower at the end of its workday. He rinsed it off and dried it off carefully with as much care as he gave to the family car. Once a week, he'd bring out the edger to trim the grass that had thoughtlessly crept, remember, it's creeping bent, onto the sidewalk. Then and only then, when the lawn and the edges were perfect, the broom and the dustpan could come out to clean up those chunks of grass and dirt. Then he'd squirt off the sidewalk and proclaim the job finished. Ours was the only house on the block with a hosed and scrubbed sidewalk. When vacation time rolled around, it was never about where we would go. It was always about who's going to cut the grass. Once the perfect candidate received Dad's blessing, the training began. First, just watching Dad go up and down a few rows with precise perfection. Then, with trembling but anxious hands, the apprentice was allowed to grip that holy grail and start to push. So many things to remember. Mow with perfect pressure. Don't cut it too high. Don't cut it too close. And for God's sakes, don't scalp it. Upon our return, Dad would slow the car as we approached the house. "Grass looks good," he'd say. Then, while we were unpacking the car, he would walk to the front yard for a closer inspection. You would think that we could walk on that grass. After all, golfers walk on bent grass, and they even hit little balls on it. But, oh no, Dad made it perfectly clear to us and the kids in the neighborhood that our grass was not made for walking. Yet, on one Saturday, a neighbor kid, Tommy Pekar, not only walked on Dad's hallowed lawn, he took a stick and poked a huge divot right near the sidewalk. In plain sight and plain enough for Dad to see when we came driving home. Dad did that slow approach to the house and then suddenly slammed on the brakes and yelled, "What the?" and then laid some rubber getting into the driveway. Upon closer scrutiny, sure enough, there was a 3 to 4 inch hole. Not quite huge, but big enough. Now, the Pekars, they were a good family with a lot of kids. Mr. Pekar owned a TV shop over on Meringue, and he worked long hours. Mrs. Pekar stayed home like most moms in the 1950s. Tommy was the impish, wild one. As soon as Mrs. Pekar saw Dad standing there, kind of dumbfounded, she hauled Tommy over to apologize. I remember that there was some finger wagging going on, and Tommy was looking down at the ground. That divot took a long time to repair itself. Dad pampered it, and he probably even prayed for it along the way. 11 years we moved across the invisible boundary from Detroit into Grosse Pointe. We were all proud of our new house, but the lawn, well, the lawn simply wasn't up to Dad's standards. A sod cutter had to be rented and remove the grass, and predictably, Dad called the same friend and installed yet another sprinkler system. This time, the nursery recommended shredded pieces of creeping bent to be spread on that dirt. It will quickly take root and be just fine, they said. But soon it rained, and it rained hard, all night and into the next day. Dad was worried. Time to call Mom worried. Honey, go to the basement and get some of those plastic drop cloths. Can you see it? Think about it before I tell you what Dad said. Yep. Spread that plastic down from the house to the sidewalk where the lawn is supposed to be and it slopes. Weigh it down with rocks. And she did. There was plastic everywhere. Since we now lived in Grosse Pointe, I'll bet there was probably an ordinance against that. Ah, well. Come fall, a city truck parked on the street. They had shovels and small trees in the back of the truck. Before Mom knew what they were doing, they started to dig a hole in the easement, that space between the sidewalk and the street. They were going to plant a tree. It was the days of the Dutch elm disease, and dead elms had to be removed. To this day, the tree that was planted to replace that dead elm is the only one on the entire block that isn't centered. Yep, they had to plant that tree off-center because of Dad's underground sprinkler system. After that move, Dad dreamed about a perfect lawn that would compare to the one he nurtured over on Fairmount. But no amount of hard work got him there. The lawn that folks circled the block to see again. The lawn where folks slowed down and admired it. He had to settle for second best, something he rarely did. 4 years ago, Dad joined Mom in heaven. During his memorial service in this glorious sanctuary, I talked about it. Melissa Ann mentioned it, and Daniel Irvin prayed for it. Those who knew Dad and his lawn snickered. Who else has a lawn worthy of snickering in their memorial service? Dad, I'm sure you now have that perfect lawn that's part of your perfect home up there in heaven. I wonder if you're allowing the angels to walk on it. Probably not.
Our fourth story comes from one of our youth members, Lana Smith. She's going to tell us about dreams that create movements. Lana?
Hello, First Press. In 1963, in front of the Lincoln Memorial, Martin Luther King Jr. addressed a crowd of restless and sweaty people. King volunteered to go last despite the fear that perhaps, after 9 other speakers, a tribute to women, an invocation, a couple sets of songs, prayers, and the national anthem, the August heat would be too intolerable for the crowd to stay and hear his words. But it wasn't. The night before, King's advisor told him to leave out his "I have a dream" lines. They were cliché and overused, his advisor told him, but he kept them. And the next day, Martin Luther King shared with the crowd a dream of equality. A dream that his children might not be judged by the color of their skin, but instead by the content of their hearts. One person's dream that became the dream of a nation. Passed on through generations, when enough people have the same dream, that is how it becomes a movement. I remember the cries of no justice, no peace, when the lurking discomfort in my heart told me that somewhere along the way, MLK's dream had been forgotten. And for centuries in America, it has been, because before it was his dream, it was the dream of millions oppressed that came before him. And despite the years of fighting, complete racial equality has not yet been reached in America. We began to accept systemic racism as an unfortunate part of life, something you pray you'll never encounter for yourself. We started avoiding conversations about race in the same way that we avoid any other topic that makes us uncomfortable. But this was never part of Dr. King's dream. In May, the murder of George Floyd sparked something beyond protests. It sparked awareness and conversations about why we live in a world where racial profiling can end in death, in someone losing a parent, a husband, a colleague, a son. And the more people became aware, the more change we saw. While the dream of racial equality has far from come true, it's clear that the hard work put in throughout the centuries has generated change. No, Martin Luther King wasn't the first to have his dream, but the protests held in the 60s made people realize that many shared the same dream. And because we are powerful together, their dream became a movement. Dreams become change when we dream together. Thank you.
And now we will hear from Callie Feyen. Callie and her husband Jesse are members here with their daughters Hadley and Harper and their new dog acquired in the quarantine. She has written several books, but I encourage you to see her works on the Coffee and Crumbs website. Callie?
2 quotations helped me with this story. The first, Mary said to him, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." "Why were you searching for me?" Jesus asked. "Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house?" That's from Luke chapter 2, verses 48 through 49. And the second, "Tonight I learned that you can take care of yourself." And this is from Joyce, Buffy Summers' mom, from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'm watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer in our basement when I hear Hadley and Jesse in the room above me. We were all watching The Office, a show I admit is hilarious, but I can only take so many episodes before I start to get depressed. And so I came downstairs, turned on the twinkle lights, and settled in with the vampires and other dark things. The 2 of them are discussing Snapchat. Hadley, now the ripe age of 14, believes she should be on it. She stopped asking me, because to say I don't respond well is like saying Elsa figured out how to make a few ice cubes for cocktails the day she sang the song Let It Go. I press pause and eavesdrop. I hear things like, "I know Mom thinks," or "I know Mom says," and then, "It's just that, but the hardest to hear is my friends." It's been years since I've watched the series. I think Hadley was 5 when Jesse, hearing me talk nonstop about the Twilight series, thought I might like Buffy, Willow, Xander, Rupert, and the gang. This was back in the day when our Netflix subscription came in the mail in red envelopes. Hadley had started kindergarten, Harper was in preschool, and I had just started graduate school. All of us, after spending several years together, were off separately learning something new about the world and our place in it. One day back then, it was just after lunch. I was standing on our back deck wondering if I stilled myself enough, if I could hear what was going on at Hadley's school. An impossibility, I knew, But I was missing Hadley and wondering what she was up to, and so I stood there, I suppose, listening to my imagination. A few moments later, I received a phone call from her school. "Hello?" I said. "Callie?" the voice on the other end asked. "Yes?" "Hadley's okay," the voice said. "Okay," I said. "When was Hadley not okay? And who is this?" It was the assistant principal. She explained that at recess, right at the time the class was lining up to go back inside, one of Hadley's classmates charged her and tackled her to the ground. What I could see from our back deck was a glimpse of Sugarloaf Mountain, about a 45-minute car ride west of our town. I wondered with a bit of a thrill if I could make it there alone for a day before the kids got back from school. I didn't know what I'd do there, certainly not hike. But the thought of being able to go alone was thrilling. I thought about this with guilt as the assistant principal went through the incident. What if I had gone to Sugarloaf when this happened? Does the school even have my cell phone number? Do I get service out in the wild? How could I be so irresponsible? I was so flustered and anxious by the time pickup rolled around, I could barely keep myself in the car when I saw Hadley. We drove straight to get ice cream. I figured we would hash all this out over a twist cone with rainbow sprinkles. I would apologize that she'd gotten hurt, while at the same time explain the problem of evil and also the need for grace. I would fix this. I would give Hadley all she needed to go back to school the next day. "So," I bravely began, "I heard about what happened at school today." "What happened?" Hadley asked, slurping a spot of ice cream that dripped from her cone onto her finger. "You got knocked down? At recess?" I said it gently, quietly, so as to ease her in and let her know it's okay to talk about it. We could do hard things. Hadley looked at me confused, then said, "Oh." She licked her cone once again. "Yeah, he made the wrong decision." She swiped an enormous bite of ice cream and sprinkles from the top of her cone, then said, "Mom, do you know about tundras?" "Tundras?" I asked. "Yeah. Do you know about them?" "I think so." We finished our ice cream while discussing the vast, flat, treeless Arctic regions where the subsoil is permanently frozen. Watching Buffy at the day's end was inspiring. I admit there doesn't seem to be much in common with a stay-at-home mom who kind of fell into writing and a vampire-fighting teenage girl. But what I found inspiring about Buffy was that every episode was a question, a search, a battle. She showed me what being called feels and looks like. It wasn't about whether you were qualified or that you know what you're doing. It's that you exist and that you are willing to try. I know Buffy killed many vampires and other creatures of the night, but she also saw their humanity. She even falls in love with a couple of them. Early on in the series, those two vampires, Angel and Spike, discuss Buffy's demise, and Spike tells Angel that the only way to kill Buffy is to love her. It's an insane statement. How could you kill a person you love? Then again, how could I send Hadley into the world where she will get knocked down? It is Spike, the fiercest, baddest, most vile vampire that I love the most. He's funny and smart, and yes, he seems to be all bad, but it is Spike who uses his life in a pivotal, redemptive purpose. What's more, he uses his life, all that he is and all that he has, willingly. It is Spike's face I am staring at while I listen to Hadley and Jesse discuss Snapchat. I think about Hadley and I eating ice cream and her telling me about tundras, and I'm wondering now what it means to be permanently frozen and treeless. What does it mean to become so protectively hard nothing can grow, nothing can become? It is Hadley's bedtime, and so she comes downstairs to say goodnight and sees Spike. "Ew," she says, sitting down next to me and looking at him. "Who's that?" She turns toward me and looks me in the eye, waiting. Hadley, after learning about Amelia Earhart, asked for prayers for the pilot in Sunday school. She wanted her teachers and her other fellow 6- and 7-year-olds to pray that Mrs. Earhart would be found. I didn't know then, and I don't know now, how to explain that she won't be remembered for being found, but for the fact that she flew. I don't know how to live with this concept, and I don't know if I have the strength to let my daughter live with this concept, though I don't think I have a choice. That's Spike the vampire, I tell her. He's scary, she says and puts an arm around me. Yes, I say, hugging her close. He is.
Our final story is from Peggy Hodgson, member, deacon, beekeeper, gardener, lover of chocolate labs. Peggy?
Oh, yeah. Even in the nightmare that was World War II, my dad could find the funny. He'd always say, "Old Peg, you gotta find something to laugh at." Back in the war, he flew a B-26 bomber named Ladybugs. Well, she was a widowmaker. That's what they called her. And one day over Germany, she should have been just that, a widowmaker. Mid-air, on target, bombs ready, pins removed. The order came: stand down, return to base. Pins everywhere, pins rolling around, not enough room. How do you put pins back in bombs? What do you do when you can't? Well, you hang on and you hope for a soft landing. Dad's air crew, the 320th, stuck together through that war and 60-plus years beyond. And at every reunion, the pin story got bigger and better. It never got old. So, now here we are again, another war zone. COVID-19, the coronavirus. Like Dad's war, it snuck in around the corners. We didn't figure things out until it had pretty much taken over our lives. Think, lockdowns, masks, toilet paper, soft landings? I don't think so, not yet. Today, the greatest generation I've found are here, right here in this church. 8 women who call themselves cisterns. That's cisterns with an N. And I'm a charter member. They can't kick me out. It's like church. Once you're in, and they gotta love you. Besides, I know too much. We weren't always cisterns, nah. Like everyone else last December, we were normal people, except maybe old Linda out there in Saline wanting to have that Christmas ladies' luncheon, sending out real handwritten invites, door prizes, and 3 Costco-size lasagnas for 8 of us girls, along with Sophie's dessert that later on would qualify for the Ice Cream Pants Award of the Year. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, anyway, Linda started it, but the cisterns didn't really begin until the corona, hit the skids in March, with Gail out there making a gazillion masks, except for the 18 that got torched in the microwave. Not a good idea, sterilizing masks in a microwave, but it was Mary who got lonely, all holed up in the great Wisconsin boondocks with 2 essential grandkids. Old Mary emailing, asking Linda's lunch ladies, we copied, CeCe, Melissa Ann. If just maybe we could please drop her an email now and again. And as ladies go, we picked up right where the lasagna left off. And the rest is history. Well, almost. There's the name cistern, which got started when Alice sprung a leak, which we all get now and again. But this leak was special, a toilet leak, with Alice under it, not meaning to take a selfie, and emailing it to us girls, CeCe, Melissa Ann, asking, got any idea how to fix it? Which led Mary to the Bible, looking for leak insight, Jeremiah 2:13 to be exact, and good old Jeremiah saying plain and simple, cisterns can hold no water, which led some of us, mostly Gail, to say, what? The nerve! Why cisterns, not brethrens? Seems logical since it's always the brethrens who leave the seats up, which led to cistern this and cistern that, everyone talking at once. But in the end, it was Melissa Ann who said, now, Come on, girls. Jeremiah did not diss cisterns. After all, she should know she got a passel of seat lifters at her house and probably knows more about Jeremiah than all us girls put together. Well, that day, all 8 of us lunch ladies, CeCe, Melissa, Ann, became the cisterns even before Alice's leak got fixed. From then on till right now, right here, we are not socially distant. Thank you, modern technology. Every day since Alice's leak, we've chatted, we've texted, we've phoned, we've Zoomed. Important stuff like how gorgeous Sean Connery was, how smart Cistern Alice is to let her grandboys dig a giant mud hole in her side yard for fun, and how heavenly it was to see Cistern Pat's arms and heart chock full of great-granddaughters. Oh yeah, we cheered Cistern Sophie as she evicted a squirrel family next to her kitchen wall in the dark. And Cistern Alice's brand new rootin' tootin' squirrel flingin' bird feeder. Every day the cisterns shared decorator tips, closet makeovers, and ciabatta bread recipes. And why ice cream pants are a closet staple if you eat a bucket of ice cream in the middle of the night, right out of the container with no one looking and no one knowing but you, your spoon, and your ice cream pants. They're roomy. Cistern Linda tackled the ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs of wallpapering, while Cistern Mary perfected the boot scootin' boogie method of floor scrubbing. If you're past 32, she says it works better for your joints. Now, I did not say she is past 32. That's what I heard, though. And then we all, 100%, said yes, yes, to the 26-day marathon challenge where you only have to walk a mile a day for 26 days to be an Olympic marathonian. All of us, CeCe, Melissa, Ann, signed up, but only two cisterns crossed the finish line. The rest are in training. That's what they say. Or wearing ice cream pants. Same difference. In August and September, in Cistern Alice's carport 6 feet apart, we agonized over Black Lives Matter, Politico's good and evil, how we missed church, the movies, the hugs, our kids losing jobs, our own COVID tests, our holidays alone. We got mad, we cried, we prayed together. But you know, that didn't stop 2020. It just kept on going. Jeanette's daughter badly hurt in a bike accident, and then her dad died. A beloved student gone. A son desperately needing 2 transplants and getting them. A husband facing medical tests. Grief, fear, and COVID biting every step along the way. And the dream? What dream? Where was the dream? Where was the dream? And where were all those soft landings? Well, guess what? They were always there, always with us. The dream of sharing, of being together. Together we could face the worst, and you know, we still laughed. Yeah, we'd get through. After all, we are the cisterns, CeCe, Melissa, Ann. The last time I saw Dad, he was home talking Air Force, talking the 320th, talking that trip the guys had all taken back to France 40 years later. There in that little village, surrounded with the same French kids, 40 years later, all grown up, they retook the photo they'd taken back in 1945. Not one was missing. And then, 16 years later, that same group reunited again, this time in Phoenix, and spent 9/11 hunkered down, the 320th. Old soldiers talking bombs without pins, soft landings, old soldiers who knew the value of being together. You know, I'd like to think I'm an old soldier these days, me and my cisterns. All of us facing the uncertainties this pandemic brings. Yeah, we've got a few war stories of our own. I dream of the day when this COVID war gives up and gives us our lives back. Hey, Dad, I hear you loud and clear. Find something to laugh at, girl. Oh, I do, Dad. You know those ice cream pants? They fit pretty good. Thanks.
Do join us on Zoom after this words of greeting so that we can see one another and share grace and joy together and dreams and stories. Friends, go and dream dreams. Go and tell stories. Go and make memories to the glory of the one God who made us, the source of all that is good, especially the light, the love, and the sun, of whom we dream and who is coming. May the blessings of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit be with you now and through your life eternal. And all the people said, Amen.